We are live big time, everybody, but we're also on tape. We are deep down in the bowels of Lee's music. It's episode 86 of Kamloops Last Week. Christopher Folds, Magic Mike, and Billa at the controls. 86.
86, hey, that's the defining year for BC.
Expo.
Foldsy was graduated in May of June of 86, and we had Expo, which changed the province. If you think of the province as far as real estate especially and economy, it was pre and post 86. And the first premier to change the entire province to the future was the Wacky Bennett, and then his son Bill secured Expo 86. But Bill Vander Zalm was in charge at that time, and it was a massive World's Fair. And the Coquihalla came through that year too, which changed the fortunes for the worst for the Fraser Canyon community. So a lot happened that year.
So you were graduating high school 86?
High school 86.
So you probably went down to the Expo and had a good time.
Unfortunately, at that time, I was a young, misguided socialist, and I belonged to the NDP party under Bob Skelly, probably the weakest leader of all time. And in my naivety as a youth, I boycotted Expo 86 along with all my. So I never did go there because I was an idiot back then.
No.
There's an old saying, if you're not a socialist when you're 20, you have no heart. If you're still a socialist at 40, you have no brain. So I never went there. I did get down to the Expo grounds on August 1st, 86 to see Bob Dylan and Tom Petty, the Heartbreakers, do a 4-hour concert from which I still have the Vancouver Sun Review. But I never got into the gates because I was holding strong to the NDP opposition to the World's Fair.
What a missed opportunity.
Oh, you're telling me.
It's a shame. Yep. Michael, I want to get to you in just 1 second here because I know you have things to say. But before we do, great show today. Kamloops-Thompson-Cariboo MP Frank Caputo, he's on the show. Lots to talk about with him. We also have Glenn Grant, the BC Wildlife Park GM.
Executive Director.
And GM. Executive Director. I was just at Wildlights, Communities in Bloom. Yes.
Yeah,
I was at Wildlights over the winter. They must make a lot of money on that. That's a good news story. This isn't, is it, Mike?
What an exciting night I had last night. I think that's what you're referring to.
Yes.
We didn't talk about it beforehand, but last night I got woken up. Our Ring camera said, "Hey, there's somebody in your front yard."
What time was this?
At midnight.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So all of a sudden we're like, "What?" So I get on my phone. I check the Ring camera. I see a guy walk into my yard, over to my garage, and at my garage doors, and he doesn't leave. So he's back there trying to get into our garage. So I set off the alarm on the camera, woo, that kind of thing going on. And he ran straight to the front door
of the house,
as if he was going to confront us, because how dare we sit on, and he's out of his mind, completely out of his mind. And I'm trying to get myself into fight ready mode. Get something.
Do you have any kind of objects around?
I do. You know what? 20 years ago, when I moved into the place, there was a noise I heard. It scared me. It turned out it was the cats running around our house, but we thought somebody had broken in. So I actually have a crowbar beside the bed.
Foreign objects.
It's a good idea to have that.
But you never know. When something like this happens, you don't know that I need to grab that crowbar. I actually had misplaced it last night. And I don't really want to hurt anybody, but I want to protect myself too, right? Mm-hmm. So my wife, who's pretty quiet, Monica, she's mild-mannered, she opens up the door and just a string of obscenities and tells the guy in no uncertain terms to get off.
These are words she doesn't normally use? Or sometimes she's mad at you.
Yeah.
And she still has the bad...
She's got the broken arm.
Yeah.
She's yelling at him from there, and the guy's going, woo, woo, almost incomprehensible.
Yeah.
Trying to say, I thought this was my house. No, it's in your house. Get the hell out of here. That kind of a thing.
I saw a video because he tried to get into a number of homes on your street.
You know what? I did something not great. It freaked us out. We watched him leave the property and carry on his way down the road, and we thought, you know what? That's enough. But I really should have phoned the police right away, because not 10, 15 minutes later, he actually tried to kick down somebody else's patio door, back patio door. And then there's a string, and then I phoned the cops, the 828-3000, and there was a string of other guys he tried to break into.
This is Valley View, right?
This is Valley View. It's crazy.
I saw a video online of the guy. Someone has video, and he was walking through a carport, could barely stand up straight, and he was claiming everywhere that he thought he lived there.
Yeah, right. And it's obviously he doesn't. So this is not a homeless person. This is a person up to no good.
Up to no good.
Out of his mind.
That's right. Absolutely.
More anecdotal evidence of what we've talked about ad nauseum on our show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Let's move on. Y Dream Home, Kamloops Y Dream Home. They are coming on board to sponsor our show for a little bit here as the lead up begins and the tickets go on sale tomorrow.
Tuesday, April 4th.
Tuesday, April 4th. This picture, the one that we had up before, the Magic Mirror, by the way, is brought to you by Volkswagen, the Magic Mike himself. Magic Mirror.
This is going to be our transition. You ready? It's going to go from there to right here. It's going to be...
And there we go.
It's high tech, man.
To a Dave the Hawk Eagles photo. That's Bryce Herman over there. And that's Nicole Larson. This is the 2020 Y Dream Home winner right there. What a great moment. The keys flipped over by Bryce Herman. You got any Dream Home
See, they were
stories?
doing the social distancing back then because that was when the pandemic just started.
Oh, yeah.
No, I just buy a ticket every single year, and I've never won anything. And then you just imagine, if I won this, what would I do? And some of the winners in the past, the one I loved the best was this guy. He was renting a house on 12th Street in North Kamloops, in Brockhurst. And he plays rock and roll music all the time with his friends. And he won the house in West Side. And we asked him, what are you going to do? He goes, I'm just going to rock on. And he thought I'd sell it, but apparently the bass, like the bottom was soundproof, so him and his buddies were just playing rock and roll.
I was going to say his neighbors were probably like, oh my goodness.
No, it was great, because when the people like that win it, it's fantastic.
Kamloops Y Dream Home Lottery. Tickets go on sale tomorrow, Tuesday, April 4th. Home valued at $1.3 million. It's at 2197 Coldwater Road in Juniper West. 2,407 square feet, modern mountain home that takes advantage of the most stunning valley views. Oh, and like you said though, Foldsy, there's an additional $224,000 up for grabs and bonus prizes. Get your tickets online, kamloopsylotto.ca. There's 21,000 single tickets available, $100 a pop, and then 2,800 the value packs. They're $400 and you get 5 tickets.
And they usually sell out very quickly. They also have the 50-50 draw, which I think is maybe that 200 and something thousand. So it's a great thing, and it goes to a great cause. All the money goes to the Y to put on programs for kids and families. The Y is a great place.
Mm-hmm. We had a great weekend. I know you had a tough day, Mike, but us three had a great weekend, didn't we?
We did, yes. Yeah, it's... although the midnight thing was pretty tough, but we like to explore different things that happen in Kamloops and check out different areas of town. So one of the things that we want to do is go check out this Y Dream Home that's it's coming on.
Yeah, because we hardly get to go to Juniper. You live closer to Juniper than we do, right?
I do, yeah. I'm not quite on top of the mountain like you are.
Right.
We were blown away. I mean, it was 3 bedrooms, 3 baths, extensive one-of-a-kind wood cabinetry, and millwork throughout. I looked at the mattresses. Did you see?
I think they were Sealy's.
They must have been
Totally
Sealy's.
We were jumping on them, from Gord's.
Gord's Appliance and Mattress Center. And I bet you, if there's any appliances in that dream home from Gord's, they will service what they sell.
Yeah. They do.
Not too far if you want to get your chicken Big Mac delivered through Skip the Dishes. You're not too far from the Valley View McDonald's, I think.
We should have just stayed there entire. Like, I wonder how long we could have squatted there and just lived in there.
Well, these days, probably forever. They can't kick you out anymore.
Well, we didn't want to because we had our Volkswagen to joyride around it, so we had to get out of there and take it for a spin.
All the way down Highland Road. What a nice ride for a Volkswagen to go down.
And you were raving about it.
Oh yeah, the corners nicely. You go down the hill. It's brakes. It's just it feels great. The other thing that's really nice is I'm excited that we can have a race soon from Juniper in Volkswagens. Both exits.
Both exits, yeah. Once sooner or later we'll get over to Rose Hill and then down to your neighborhood. There.
You were so enthused that you demanded we go to the dealership, and you took out a scroll and started making a speech about it's 100% locally owned and
heary. Yes,
heary. 47 years ago. I love Volkswagen. That's what you said, the people's car for the people's show.
I got that. Well, we all got matching Volkswagen. I can't quite get Volkswagen tattoos, but
Chris got in a weird place, like his tattoo didn't turn out very good.
Yeah. It was upside down. It was a W-A.
Didn't get an Expo 86 tattoo either.
It's an MA. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, let's move on. Glenn Grant coming up if he's here. We hope he's here.
Just here. No, yep.
That's in the Tattle of Hastings. It's brought to you by Gord's Appliance and Mattress Center. Don't want the 9-hour cycle, please. Freaking $500 hydro bill, piece of trash. I need to speak to Gord on the 9er.
Hey, no, I'm actually Steve, the new owner.
First things first, pal. You should probably update your sign. Number 2, my dishwasher is tangled again. The 9-hour cycle, hydro bill through the roof. You guys don't fix appliances, I know that, so I need a new one.
We actually do fix appliances, but if you want, I can show you some new ones first and have a look. You got a price in mind?
Money's not an obstacle for me.
Money's definitely an obstacle. He's the cheapest guy in Kamloops. Ain't that right, Darby?
Well, this here is going to be your Cadillac model, top of the line. This is our middle of the road dishwasher, just a great dishwasher at a great price. This is our budget friendly model, still a great dishwasher, just at a bit of a lower price.
Price doesn't work for me. Let's see if we can fix mine at home.
Alrighty then. There you go, seems to be good. How's the fridge working?
The fridge is fine, Gord.
It's Steve.
We're here with Glenn Grant, BC Wildlife Park. Thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here, gentlemen.
I want to talk to you about what's new, the spring and the summer. Actually, can I ask you first about
Yes.
wildlights?
Yes.
How well do you guys do? I went there, it was a big couples event, and we had a blast. The photos, just a good vibe, but how well do you guys do, and how big of a hit is that every year?
It's a huge hit, and actually it's our largest attended event, obviously, being 21 days. But it gives us 20% of our revenue and 20% of the attendance for the entire year in 21 days in December.
And the
So
weather,
that's
as
pretty
far
good.
as like the coldness, was okay this year, and
Yes and no. We've averaged about 850 people per day. When it got down just before Christmas, there was 4 days that it was like minus 20. It gets down to like less than 100. So yeah, those 4 days make a big difference.
yeah.
But overall, for the whole event, it was fine. This year's attendance was 22,670, which is the best we've had since 2005.
Oh, beautiful.
So that was great, and a lot of it has to do with a few new things. For the last couple of years in a row, we've had over 22,000, but this absolutely was the best we've had in a long time. Snow came early.
Yeah, it did.
Made it a little bit of a challenge putting everything up.
Came real early, came day
Yeah.
after Thanksgiving, I think.
I think another thing that made a difference this year is the new generation of LED lighting is substantially brighter. Like the white light in the past was kind of yellowish or more of an incandescent kind of vibe to it, but the new LED lights are bright.
Well, we
They're
went
really bright.
the couple's photos with my now ex-girlfriend. We got a great.
You can't look at him anymore because he gets hurt.
We got a great. We got a great photo in that massive tunnel with all those lights.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
Yeah.
That was a great.
Those
and
are
it was
cool
bright with those
photos.
LEDs.
Yes, those are all.
Yeah.
Everything in the park is LED now. We don't have one incandescent bulb anywhere.
Yeah, and there's a KTW setup in there. There's a Kamloops Last
There
setup.
is,
few other
and
things
and
too,
a digital.
Digital,
And
too.
Kamloops is digital.
Sexy Crystals.
So yes, they're both
Sexy
they're both
Crystals.
they're both there.
Okay,
Yeah.
the seasons have changed now, though. We
Yeah.
don't want 0 degrees anymore.
No.
So give us the goods. What's up and coming?
Up and coming. Well, Easter's right around the corner, right? So we'll have 4 days of mayhem, of Easter egg hunts every half an hour. For it'll be
On the 7th,
we-
8th, 9th, and 10th, right?
7 days, 9th, and 10th.
That's right, yeah, coming up.
The 10th actually is going to be a very great day for us. We are partnering again with Canucks Autism for a sensory-friendly Easter egg hunts in the
Very
morning
cool.
from 9 until noon.
Right.
So that's important.
Yeah.
So they've partnered with the TD Bank to help make all that happen. So we'll have no music. Uncle Chris will be a lot calmer and a lot tamed down. And again, Ralph Warner's been terrific. He donated a bunch of sensory kits
Yep.
to the park that we did during Wildlights.
Warner Rentals,
For
yeah.
Warner Rentals, yeah.
Yep.
Warner Rentals is huge.
We should get him on as a sponsor.
for that.
My
Yeah,
daughter
he's been great.
volunteered with the Canucks Autism Number for many, many years. So that's just really
Yeah.
good, really good. If she was on here promoting it, remember? She was
Yeah.
on the
Yeah.
show.
Well,
I-
the kids must. I mean, they love the wildlife park in general, but the Easter egg hunt must be.
Incredible, eh?
It's great. And again, we do it every half an hour. We do a younger group from 6 to 9, and then another group from 9 to 12. And after that, the kids can go on a scavenger hunt. They can do something else for their Easter egg. This is for the little kids. But if you guys have been there during it, when you put all those eggs out,
Oh, yeah.
and you get Uncle Chris riling all those kids up,
Oh, yeah.
and there's music playing in the background,
great.
it's fun, and it's crazy. So that's why it's important to tame it down a little bit for the kids that everybody should be able to enjoy it.
You've been doing this for a while now, right?
A long time, yeah. I've been at the park for 26 years.
26 years. Do you have one memory that stands out, maybe like with a kid or a moment or an event that was just, I don't know, heartwarming or sad or something that stands out in your mind?
Oh, there's lots,
Yeah.
actually, and they're mostly animal related. Well, first, actually, there were some colleagues of mine. Rob Purdy, you guys might remember Rob Purdy. Him and Dan Hines. Yeah, Dan Hines used to work at the park a long time
Hines
ago.
is now sailing his life away with his
He
wife
is,
down
yeah.
in
He's got a great boat down there in Naramata.
That's right.
Which is terrific. On a side note, actually, Dan married my wife and I on a hike in Wellsbury Park many years ago. I've known Dan, for a long time.
Yeah.
But
Good sidebar.
but yeah, actually, it was getting together and starting Wildlights. Because that's when, again, everybody was seasonal. We did kind of a, like a weekend winter festival kind of thing. But back then we figured, we can do something better. And yeah, we started Wildlights. So that was fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
Animal related, it was the day I got a phone call that asked me if I wanted a white bear.
Oh yes,
So
the
that
spirit
was
bear.
the spirit bear.
Promote bear, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was an interesting
Clover.
story. Clover.
Right, that's the
Clover. Yeah, I got a call from Mr. Terry Lake, and he said, "Glenn, you want a white bear?" I said, "Sure, we do." He says, "Great, because it's on the way."
What are the kind of the
Huge
go ahead.
backstory with
No,
that.
speaking of animals, because a lot of people will say, well, they may not be aware, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the animals that come to the BC Wildlife Park, they're there for rehabilitation. If they were left out, they might not survive. So you're prolonging the lives. Is that right?
Absolutely. We are all about rescue and rehabilitation.
Right.
So most of our collection comes from that route, right? Whether it's orphaned in the wild and brought to us, once it's human imprinted, you can't release it.
Right.
And again, that's what happened with Clover. That's what happened with our two grizzly bears.
Newt and
They're-
Dawson.
Dawson and
Great
Canute.
bears.
Yeah,
They do yoga and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Oh, they're great. But
Yeah.
but their mother got unfortunately shot up at a work camp up in the Yukon. So we rescued the two little cubs. If we don't, then they're not going to make it. So, but that's or if it's born in captivity in another accredited facility
Right.
that doesn't have room for it. So we kind of surplus them and move,
Sort of like
move
what
animals
you
around
guys
that way.
did with the coyotes recently. You have coyotes, you move them to
Exactly.
Quebec
Yep.
so they can learn some French.
So they can learn some French.
And,
Yeah.
then, and then you're going to expand where the coyotes were. Well, explain what you're going to do there.
Yeah.
'cause it's
So,
pretty
well,
big.
first with the coyotes, a lot of people thought that this is great. Why are you getting rid of the cows? They're so active. They're running around all over the place. They were running around because they're terrified and they're scared. You could see them from the road, from their viewing platform. Train comes in behind them. We put a fence over there. So that really wasn't the best habitat for them to be in. And if we can't look after them the best, well, then let's send them someplace that will. What we're planning on doing with the area that they vacated now is moving the raccoons over that way and adding some skunks or another animal into that space. And the reason we're doing that is because we need to add 50% more space to the grizzly bears.
Right, they need more space to roam.
So everything has a purpose, and even though the grizzly bear is the main focus of the whole project, you got to take care of the coyotes, you got to take care of the raccoons, you're going to have to do other things in order to make that space available.
When we did the story, the coyotes moving to Quebec, everyone thought Arizona is finally going back to where they should be.
Yeah.
NHL, but
That's
they're
right.
Coyotes.
Yeah, and if those that want to see a coyote, you just open up your back door in Kamloops,
They're
right?
everywhere, yeah.
Maybe you have an
So
extra
that makes a
grizzly,
difference.
an extra grizzly to take care of Mike's house as security. Just keeps on getting broken
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Warning.
Yeah.
Grizzly
See,
on site. Yeah.
We should actually let the cougar. The cougar is the most dangerous animal we have in the park.
Really?
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
How come?
Without a doubt. They're predatory.
Oh, okay.
See, most bear conflicts happen because you've either interfered with their food source, or you came in between that, or they feel like you're threatening their young.
Okay.
So for the most part, if a bear hears you on a walking trail, they'll take off. Cougar sees you and they go, "Hey, there's dinner."
Oh, okay.
I worry about
So,
the eaters.
a cougar will stalk you and will be predatory. A bear is defending its.
It's a last resort in which he's going to
that's right.
attack you.
They prefer not to have the conflict.
Right.
But a cougar, they invite it.
Wow.
Magic Mike, you got a question?
Yeah. Actually, when you were asking about stories about things that are memories, I got a bunch. For years we worked together doing the Symphony of Lights. But I remember one night, there's two things that came up. One night, Steve came up to us. We were in the little booth with the little heaters programming all the lights. And he comes up very calmly, says, Mike, I just want you to know that the cougar has gotten out. And I think it's best that you stay in this little 4 foot by 4 foot booth. So, you're already on edge. But it was like 2 o'clock in the morning.
2 o'clock in the morning, at least.
That's where I started learning how to drink coffee. And we're sitting there looking through this little window, programming the lights. And all of a sudden, Glenn jumps up on the other side. Goes,
Yeah.
Well, what I love about the wildlife park and the wildlights is your staff's attention to making it really fun and interactive and enjoyable. So I think that's kudos to you. All your staff, all those years that we worked with you guys was amazing. So
Yeah. Our staff do great work that I get the credit for, but they do the work, not me.
But you know what? Even when you weren't leading, you were on the team leading the maintenance guys kind of a thing. That was great. And then when you took a leadership role, it just got better. So congratulations on that.
Well,
too.
thanks.
So.
Did you go to Expo 86?
Yes, I did.
What do you remember about that? It's our 86th episode, and Chris told a story earlier how he boycotted it because for political reasons. So I want to get your memories of Expo 86.
Well, it was just hectic, and I just kept thinking, all this infrastructure, all this stuff, what the heck is it ever going to be used for again? Sure, some things got repurposed, but I remember there was one structure that was there that got moved to Kelowna because they were going to use it for something. It was on Highway 97 for the longest time, and it sat there for another 15 years, and then they finally garbaged it.
Yep.
So I just think it was, sure, it brought the world, to Vancouver, and maybe helped a little bit, but I think there was a lot of wasted, infrastructure.
The McWharf. Remember the McWharf?
Like the Olympics, at least all those facilities that they built
Still being used.
are still being used and can be used in the future, or can be used again for another Olympics. But Expo was a whole different ballgame.
Yes, that's right.
Well, we're almost out of time. Anything else you want to add before we let you go?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of projects that people are going to see completed at the park, and one is we just built an outdoor classroom on the Great Lawn. It just got finished a couple of days ago. It's a very large cedar structure. It's 30 by 50, so we'll be able to do some outdoor education classrooms and programs out there. It'll serve as for corporate events, but it'll be really cool to see that out there.
Is there a sponsor for that?
So, not yet.
You guys
Not
built it.
yet.
Okay, good. Maybe you need a sponsor for that.
Maybe.
Good. Okay.
That was. But anything else? You said you had a couple things, or was that?
That's
That was the main one.
The train's running.
That's the main one. There's so many things that people are gonna see.
Yeah.
They'll see a lot of construction going on in the next 2 years. The playground is the next biggest project that we got. We can't keep telling everybody that we're all inclusive and we do this and we're fully accessible, and then our playground and play structures are very, very, very limiting.
Yeah.
So we are working on a project of redoing the playground to make it completely accessible to kids of all abilities and disabilities. So that'll be the next big project that people will start to see some construction going up in the playground and want to know what they're doing.
Good.
Awesome.
We need to make improvements.
And the train's running still. The train's still
Train
going.
is
Very
running
popular.
still. Yep.
Very
it'll
popular.
it'll be running all through the Easter weekend, and then starting the May long weekend, it'll run every single day up until
That's a great thing.
September.
I love it.
I think the train is great, and to think that they're all a bunch of seniors,
all volunteers.
they're all volunteering their time.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
The forecast for this Easter weekend is unbelievable. It's going to be sunny and 18.
Yes.
So it's a great time to go to the park, man.
That's great.
Awesome.
It's going to be wonderful.
Our train keeps rolling now. We got Frank Caputo next. It's brought to you by Gord's Appliance and Mattress Center and Volkswagen of Kamloops. You like the Above the Folds intro video there?
That was really nice.
Not bad.
I like that. It's a little different than being on Power and Politics, but that's okay.
Frank Caputo, can I ask you about Joe Biden?
Sure.
Very quickly, the handshake. How was his handshake?
It was firm. It was friendly. And how can I put this? He has this demeanor about him that I think all politicians should really strive for, in that you know, whether you agree with somebody or disagree with somebody, you can also look at the way somebody kind of conducts themselves and all that. And he's quite genuine when you look him in the eye. And one of my staff shook his hands, and he was just so genuine. Tell me, what's your name? Who am I? In other words, who am I speaking with? And he engages with the person directly. And even when he was reading from the teleprompter, and you can't see it on the camera, but he's got 2 teleprompters. You can't really tell that they're there. But I remember thinking, is he reading from the teleprompter or not? So he's got a very natural delivery, both when he's speaking and when he's meeting with somebody. So I really appreciated that about him. It was we didn't even know if it was going to happen. I just kind of lurked around and it happened.
Well, that's an interesting point, because you are a politician and people are watching to see, does this guy seem genuine or not? So do you, is that something can you actually work on being genuine, or does it have to come natural to you?
You know what? I'll say this. I say this to people all the times, well, behind closed doors, and right now I'm going to say it on video. You can't fake authenticity. And well, very few people can, and those who can fake authenticity scare me. Because
probably psychopaths.
Yeah, because you're thinking like you're either, if you're authentic, and eventually, if you're not authentic, people will see through it.
You travel, you're traveling a lot, you're going to Ottawa and back, you have a family. I think they can maybe go with you sometimes and sometimes not. So how, is that hard on you when you have to be away from your family, and how are you settling into Ottawa life in general?
It is certainly hard. It is probably the hardest part. I mean, I knew, like, you know, when you come into a job, you know, you as a journalist, for instance, you know you're going to write stories, right? But once you get into it, you're like, okay, these are things I didn't anticipate. I knew I was going to travel, but now I'm almost 44 years old, and you realize, okay, my body's not 22 anymore, so you know the aches kind of catch up. And this is at 44. You know, I'm not 64 yet or anything like that. But you don't anticipate those types of things. Being away from the family is difficult. My kids are still relatively young. Shout out to my wife. She is an absolute rock star. People don't know
Odette.
She
Odette.
watched the show?
Well, she's going to this day.
We had that great photo.
Yes, the great.
Oh,
that
that's
was
right.
great.
Is that LED or Dave Eagles?
If you want to hear something
Dave
funny,
Eagles.
Dave Eagles, that was a great photo, and we had no idea it was coming. She still talks about
Candid
it.
photo.
It was a very candid photo. I love it. It's actually in our house when you walk in. We're not. I'm actually thinking about putting it on a
should
print.
frame it.
Yeah, put it on print, but the newspaper's there. But if you actually Google it, you know, like Frank Caputo, you'll see like Frank Caputo office. Frank Caputo MP, and you'll see Frank Caputo wife. So I don't know why that is. I always say she's much more charming, much smarter, and just much more refined than I am. And at the end of the day, she is a rock star. She manages a full-time job. She teaches as well.
We just covered a forum she had at True on intimate partner violence, and she was presenting it all, so it was very interesting.
Yes, yeah. So you can see why.
Yeah.
You see why I married her.
Oh, absolutely.
Chris?
Okay, so on a serious note here, one of the biggest issues that keeps going is this allegations of interference in the elections by the Chinese government. Other governments have done it too. Canada has interfered in elections. We know that, going back to Venezuela and elsewhere. But right now, Chinese interference in elections is a big deal. And one thing I wanted to know from you, because we asked Harjit Sajjan, the Minister of International Development. I think he was in Kamloops today, April 3rd, just touting the budget, and we asked him a question regarding interference in elections. There's only 2 political parties that allow non-citizens to vote in the nomination process. One is your party, the Conservatives. The other is the Liberal Party. The Greens, the NDP, and the People's Party of Canada all require Canadian citizens only to vote in nominations, because only they can vote in the elections.
Yes, that's right.
And then in October, Global News did a story where they said they saw CSIS documents that said that there was international students who did not have citizenship bussed into Don Mills, Don Valley, to vote for the candidate, and that was very concerning, because if an outside country, regardless of who it is, that wants to interrupt our democracy, be it Scotland, China, Ecuador, if they can go to a nomination meeting knowing that whoever wins is going to win that riding because it's a Liberal riding or a Conservative riding, and you bring in a whole bunch of people who are not citizens and they vote for the candidate in the nomination process, they are in fact, determine the election because that person's going to win anyway. 100%. So that's my long-winded way to say
it's
why do you think that's the right thing? Should that not change? Should that be restricted to just citizens?
Well, I'll tell you this. You know what? That's not something I'd actually turn my mind to. I didn't actually know that was the case until I ran for the nomination, because I'm a Canadian citizen. As a Canadian citizen, it's just nothing I've ever had to turn my mind to. And Kathy McLeod was actually appointed. So when you think about when was the last time we actually had a contested nomination in Kamloops, I don't recall with Betty Hinton, but at that time you had the PCs.
Betty Hinton ran against Russ Kendary and I think someone else. Yeah.
Did she?
The first time.
The first time, yeah. And that was, well, that
2000.
would probably be 2000.
After
So
Nelson
I was
Reese.
still in
Diapers.
my undergrad. Yeah, I was still in diapers. Yeah. Not that young. So when you think about it, these aren't things that really come about. You know, I'd really want to think about that.
Okay.
You know, as a child of immigrants, I think I'd want to think about that.
Okay, I'll tell you what Sajjan told us.
Okay, yeah, please do.
We asked him.
Let me mull this over
And,
while you're saying it.
He's been in town 5 times, I know. 3 times we asked him about the Saudi Arabia arms sales, and even today, and he just won't answer. But that's whatever. That's a politician. He said, because our view and my view is it shouldn't happen because if the problem is as serious as we're led to believe, then all holes should be plugged, and this is a simple one to plug. That's what I'm saying. What his answer was, and it's an interesting answer. He says, well, it's a way for people who are going to become citizens to get a taste of democracy, particularly from people who come from countries that don't have democracy. It's a good way for them to practice, to get used to it, because they're going to become citizens down the road. That was his response.
That's interesting. I was actually thinking along the same lines.
Yeah.
You know, for people who are new to Canada, but nevertheless want to play a role in the political process. Now, there's one thing too that, and I'm not sure if you consider this, but do you know how old you have to be to be a political party member?
I think it's 14.
14.
Yeah.
So those people can't vote either.
No, they can't.
Right. So would you, with your logic, would you actually extend it to them as well and say, you know, these people can't vote?
Well, I'm a proponent of dropping it to 16.
Are
which
you? Okay.
Which has been a big movement by a lot of people, because I know a lot of 16-year-olds who are far more politically intelligent than a lot of people my age. So I don't think age is kind of an arbitrary thing.
Okay, so age doesn't matter to you. Because the reason I bring up age is
I
because
think,
there is a threshold.
Well, going back to that though, the citizen thing, I think it's much less likely or much more difficult for a hostile foreign government to influence someone who's a citizen here, as opposed to maybe some of their students studying here and busing them into.
I see.
I think there's a difference there.
Either way, it's something that we should be addressing 100% full stop. I mean, to the point where I actually spoke with my official agent, and I communicated with him and said, look, were there any donations here that raised alarm bells? Because you know, during an election, things are happening fast. Right. I'm not sure if you recall, I was nominated with 6 days prior to an election. I mean, you want to feel like you're on a downhill slope. You know, I don't know if you ski, but the wind is coming back at you, and you're not quite up to the. You know, you're like, this is going fast. Like, that's what it feels like. So, you know, people come, they drop off donations, and you're not individually there when everybody comes and goes. So even to that extent, I was concerned. Thankfully, there was nothing that raised alarm bells. My view is, if there was, you report it, right? And you shine the light on these things.
Right. Okay. Good.
Just switch gears to the budget.
Sure.
Just your thought. The minister's in town today. He's talking about it. He's saying good things, glowing
he's
things.
boasting the budget. He's, you know, all the ministers funnel around across the country, no matter what government. They're not selling the budget because it's already passed, but they're trying to convince you that it's a good thing. So, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, the budget hasn't passed yet. We haven't had the vote on it. We'll have the Budget Implementation Act and things like
but
that.
it will. I mean,
it will pass.
It has
it's
to be
pass
because of the agreement the NDP has.
No,
right?
you're
the
right.
plan, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's gonna. The budget's gonna pass. You know, it's interesting because it's GDP to debt was the line they said we will not cross. That was a critical threshold that Minister Freeland said, this is the line. You know, and everybody, you know, you draw lines in the sand at times in government, and, you know, foreign interference, that's the line, right? And that was a line they said they wouldn't cross, but they actually did cross it. What's hard for me is, you know, I grew up fairly modestly, right? I've talked about my family background, and you always live within your means. You know, when I grew up, my family, I don't remember this, born in 1978, my dad said, you know, when we were younger, we just didn't go to restaurants. Not because we didn't want to, because we couldn't afford it. I remember going to Expo 86, and that was like...
That's crazy you bring this up. It's our 86th episode. We've talked about it 3 times.
Oh, really?
This is the 3rd time we've talked about Expo 86.
Oh, really? Yeah. So Expo Ernie blew my mind as an 8-year-old, right?
He wasn't there because he was boycotting it for political reasons.
I was
How old are you? I thought you were around my age.
I'm about 10 years
Sorry,
old.
the authenticity came out a little too much.
How old are you?
44.
I'm 10 years older than you.
Okay.
But, at the time...
So you were 18.
I was 18. I was graduating that year, 17. And at that time, I was a misguided youth. I was a member of the BC NDP. Bob Skelly, the weakest leader of all time. And the NDP stance said we boycotted it because it was economically unfeasible. So I boycotted it. Like an
Really?
idiot, yes.
Okay. Well, I was enjoying Expo, Ernie. You had a sign in your hand, I suppose. But but my point being, like, we live within our means, and this is, as a country, I think we really have to return to that. And this is the hard part, and I get it, and I'm not here trying to be partisan and take shots. But at the end of the day, for instance, with my family, it was there are certain things you can't have, right? We didn't have a Cadillac, we had a crew cab, right? My dad had a '67 Ford, and he drove that into the ground until probably like 1991, right? You live within your means, and I think countries have to consider that. And there's not always, you can't have everything in life. You just can't. So one thing I do appreciate about what our leader Pierre has said is, if a dollar is going in or if a dollar is going out, then a dollar should be coming in to government, because you can only fund so many things. So when you look at a $43 billion deficit, and the government is telling us, this is great because we're reducing the deficit. We're at a point now, and I haven't crunched every number, and this is, and I'm not an economist, but our military is going to be on par for funding as much as the interest in our debt.
Yep.
And you say, well, yeah, that's an issue with every government, Frank. Well, it is an issue, but this government has doubled the national debt. So you can see where I'm going, that the doubling of that national debt with interest rates rising, I have really big concerns. I mean, what happens when those interest rates, which isn't far off, will be the amount that we pay for our healthcare system? Our healthcare system is absolutely in tatters. And here we are spending $43 billion for a year saying this is restraint. If this isn't restraint, I don't know. If this is restraint, I don't know what is. And people often go back to the Harper government. That was the Great Depression, or the Great Recession, as we called it.
08, 09,
and just like COVID, money had to be spent. Sometimes you have to spend money. And Justin Trudeau came in, said the budget would balance itself in 2019. We would have modest deficits. So I take a lot of issue with that because, I don't know about you. I don't want to pay $5.99 for a head of lettuce, and I'm not seeing anything in that.
Yeah, I can't believe
okay,
is
this
He's got a lettuce thing.
But
too.
okay, getting back to that. I mean,
Sure,
and Harper had to. They say all the G7, all the nations spent a lot 08, 09, 010 to get out of that the worst recession since the 30s. But what would you say to the argument that the Liberal government, it could have been your government, could have been NDP, they would have had to do the same thing in 2021 into 22 to just try to recover from the pandemic's effects?
Oh yeah, you have to recover. I'm not going to say
have to spend
that
your way out of
budget
it.
should have been balanced in 2020. I mean, there's just that's just unfeasible, right? And in fact, our party voted for a number of different things. But now, COVID's done. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but if you want to really look at the crux of the situation, ask yourself this: how much non-COVID spending has there been? And I'll even go one step further for you. The public service has grown by 30%, right? I think $151 billion was the number I read of new spending since 2015. So you've got that 2015 to 2020 mark, and then you've got roughly 2022 to date. So public service has grown by 30%. Right, and I always say, and I'm not saying that this is an ironclad logic, but just anecdotally, are your services 30% better? Right? Is our healthcare deliverables 30%? Or even if you want to take it a step back, can you see any value for your money by 30% when it comes to passports, when it comes to our military? These are the things that, as an opposition member, it's my job to point out. But as a Canadian citizen, I'm concerned. I don't know. My kids are young. Like, what is it going to be like in 10 years when we're paying off this mammoth debt, and then you have the knee jerk, right? And I'm not sure if any of you remember, 2002 that the Liberals came in the BC Liberals came in?
2001.
2001. Yep. And 77 of 79 seats, I was still in university, and I remember there were pretty drastic cuts, and everybody said, this is too much, right? That's my concern is what's that going to look like
coming
eventually?
back? Yeah, same thing in '91 when the NDP.
That was before my time.
Yeah, but same thing. It was another recession we're coming out of, and again, there was two members NDP left. And then they came in, and the Socrates had 6 left, but the same type of thing. Okay, so based on that,
yes,
is there anything in the budget that you liked?
Well.
Anything you could say, this isn't bad. There's got to be something.
Well, I mean, I like, supporting Canadians, right?
Like
obviously
the dental
housing.
Plan?
Well, dental plan is an interesting question because I'll ask you this, and please chime in, because I mull this over. These are the things that as a politician I sit there looking at the ceiling at night thinking about, okay? When you think about, I believe it's $4,000 for every home we are contributing to the debt, okay? How much money are you going to get for that dental plan? What about if that $4,000 was put into your pocket, or even $2,000, where you could spend it best, where you could know, I don't know if you have benefits otherwise. I mean, obviously nobody wants to see a child go without these things. A lot of the time, that is provincial jurisdiction. That's certainly something that gets lost in all of this. It is provincial jurisdiction, and there is a fair amount of coverage. But when I go back to it and I say, okay, what are we looking at here when people are talking about groceries? You sound like you really like your lettuce.
He has a big problem with lettuce prices.
A big problem with lettuce prices.
Yeah, and
big problem.
so I look at that, and I know that the carbon tax is a bit of a lightning rod. I understand it, and I was thinking about this as I was driving down here. And I'm not sure if you saw the news yesterday that Minister Guilbeault finally admitted, and we've been asking this question for 18 months, this is not a revenue neutral plan. And they say it's a climate plan. We say it's a tax plan. It is contributing a ton of money. Another thing people don't realize, GST on fuel. Right? When
That's the biggest scam in the world, man, because you're putting a tax on tax.
It's
ridiculous.
You just said it.
It's ridiculous.
People don't know this.
I don't like that at all.
If you think about it, and it doesn't sound like much, but think about if gasoline is, okay, so what is it, $1.69 right now?
Yeah, it's going to go up because right now, just now, the barrel went up $5 just in the last hour or this morning, because Russia and Saudi Arabia are they're gonna curtail production, sending the prices up. The West Texas crude went up $5.50.
I didn't even see. I just saw the headline that OPEC was.
The good thing is our dollar went up by 1/4% because we're tied to it. A good thing for exporters. For importers. Importers.
Yes. So when you think about that, so gas is, if the raw price of gas, if the gas is at $1.70, then I guess what? 9 cents of that is GST. So putting aside every other tax, you're paying 9 cents a liter. Now the government, with the stroke of a pen, could say, you know what, we're going to make gas $1.61, and that's just GST. That's not even carbon tax. I bet between GST and carbon tax, you're looking at quite a bit.
It is.
So when the raw price of gas is at $1.61, as opposed to the budget of $1, what it would have been, what we were paying 2 years ago, the government is making 4 cents off every liter, every single liter. The government, and you think, like, you're getting record revenues. And that's another thing that people have to realize. With this $43 billion deficit, there are record revenues. And what I invite your listeners or your watchers to think about is, you look at it, and I don't have the number committed to memory, but the forecast for interest that they base their calculations on, completely untenable. So at some point, we have to be honest with this, because it's making us uncompetitive. It's the analogy. Another analogy is foreign producers of vegetables. Sounds like you really like vegetables. I'm getting my garden ready here. Okay, if you're growing tomatoes in Mexico, you don't have the carbon tax. You pay cheaper labor, right? You pay everything's going to be cheaper. So if you have a Canadian producer, I think we would all agree, I would love for my vegetables to be grown in Canada, right? Of course, you want that. It's more environmentally friendly. That's why we have a farmer's market. We love locally made things. So you have people, though, who cannot compete with foreign production. And that foreign production is not getting taxed. So your tomato that costs $2.99 a pound to grow in Canada costs $1.49 to grow in Mexico, and the carbon tax really adds on it. It adds on everybody who starts growing it, to the person who is transporting it, to the person who is selling it. Now, it is on that every time. So the person who's selling this for $1.49 in Mexico, then we're transporting it with all the carbon emissions to BC, right? So this idea that we're going to lower emissions, it actually has a contrary approach, and we're not having Canadian jobs. So forgive me for being animated about this, but this
emissions in Kamloops, emissions in BC, emissions in Canada have only risen every single year since we've tried to stem the emissions. I think I'm not going to get into it. But I think it's ridiculous.
Yes, I know we're talking. Sorry,
and then today we have John Horgan, a great guy, but he's just joined. The board of West Shore Coal anyway,
right, I saw
which
that.
is interesting too. I know it's a different kind of coal, but still it's a greenhouse gas emitter like none other. So it's all just Do
you want to ask about the private members' bills? One of them. We're kind of running along here, but you can.
I know it feels like it's flying by. I'm sorry.
It's all good.
The two that I'm aware of, and correct me if there's more. The first one was changing the language in the Criminal Code of Canada to say child porn to sex crimes against children,
child sexual abuse and exploitation.
And just briefly, why is that important?
Well, it's very important because pornography is,
consensual thing between adults.
People consenting. Children can never consent. Right. Call it what it is. It's sexual abuse. It's not pornography. In my old position as a prosecutor, I had to deal with this a lot. And sometimes, you were reading about these things. Police officers, people in my position, were sometimes had to be exposed to the physical evidence, which was traumatizing, horrendous. Yeah, and I don't think.
And so we shouldn't inadvertently we're sanitizing it by using those words. We should get right to the point and say this is what it's a crime.
That sanitization is a key word. It was actually used in a Penticton judgment with a judge I used to teach at TRU with. He said, we are sanitizing this. We are not calling it what it is.
Remind us, where is that now law? Where is it in the whole?
It's in the Senate.
It's in the Senate, right?
So Senator Batters.
I think it's a no-brainer. When might it become?
Well, it was debated, so it'll have to go to a committee in the Senate. So my hope is May, June.
May, June. Okay.
That's the hope.
What about the stricter bail laws
Bail provisions.
on gun crimes?
That one has been introduced, and the way the private members' bills work is you have a lottery. I'm way down, so there it could be another MP who picks it up, or I'm asking the government to pick it up.
Right.
I really am. But whether they do it or not, I'm not sure. It's certainly tabled. I'm having trouble keeping track, to be honest. I have 3 bills that I've tabled 4. And I've got 3 bills that I'm working on right now. I'm actually working on an intimate partner violence bill.
Right.
Another bill I've got is with respect to sexual offenses, period. So in Canada, like let's say I take your coffee, that's theft, right? Yep. But let's say I push you and take your coffee, that's robbery. So theft plus violence equals robbery. Do you know what the maximum sentence is for robbery in Canada?
Life in prison.
It's life imprisonment.
That's right.
Okay. Do you know what the maximum sentence for sexual assault is?
14 years.
10 years.
10 years. Okay.
10 years, 14 for a child.
14 for a child.
And most sex offenses for children is 14 years as well. So we treat the taking of property more seriously than we treat the taking of consent. It's
ridiculous.
I got a problem with it.
Yeah.
If you said to me, Frank, you can be sexually assaulted or you could be robbed, I know what I'm choosing 100 times out of 100. Victims are put into a psychological life sentence frequently, okay? And this is why, for me, it's difficult. And I'm not talking about as a prosecutor. I'm talking about as a human being and as a member of parliament. It's really hard when you see sentences that just don't reflect that. And I've gotten into debates, ideological debates with people who've said, what good is that doing? And I'm saying, well, it is reflecting the seriousness of this. You're putting aside the efficacy of jail. We have to reflect the seriousness of this in our society, in my view, and one of the ways we do that is penalties. So that's another one. I've got 3 more on the go. One of them is intimate partner violence. I'm also looking at something when it comes to the community land trusts. And I'm also looking at something that comes to procedure. It's a really kind of nerdy bill, but number one time waster for police officers in BC is having to renew what we call detention orders. So let's say your laptop is stolen, they find it on me. They have to renew that every 3 months, that detention order every 3 months. In order to keep the detention lawful until charges are laid. You might not think that's a big deal. Let's say I live in Blue River and it's hard to find me. Police officers driving to Blue River to serve me with papers, then to serve me with a court date, and then waiting all day in court. It is the number one time waster. Okay. So I'm trying to deal with
something
that.
That sounds boring, but it's critical to the administrators of justice. One other thing you want to do is put a private member's bill in there is the government should start regulating the head of lettuce prices. just no matter what it is, it should be, I'll pay $2.99 year round.
Okay, so I'll tell you what.
$3.99 even, as long as it doesn't spike to 5 to 6. I get scurvy over here. I can't afford to eat the bloody things.
I know you're squeezing lemons or limes into your not your coffee, into your wines, and I do. Yeah. I tell you what, next time I come, maybe in the summer, I will, I mostly grow tomatoes. I am my father's son. But I'll bring some fresh tomatoes. They're all organic.
Yes.
One question, just as a Kamloopsian.
Yes.
Do you have any advice for our mayor and council right now?
Oh. Yeah. You see a lot of heckling.
I think it's time to go, guys.
You see a lot of stuff in the House of Commons. They have a decorum. They have a speaker to keep peace. What should City Hall do to get the decorum back and get the peace going?
I won't say City Hall generally. I'll couch this generally, and you talk about like heckling and sometimes it's actually something got picked up. We're talking about foreign interference, and I remember somebody was speaking, and I said quite loudly, "Are you okay with what happened to Kenny Chu?" Kenny Chu was in Richmond, who likely lost his seat due to interference. I mean, he worked his life probably to get that seat, and to lose it due to interference. And I said, "Are you okay with that?" Right? Sometimes these things have to be said, but at the end of the day, especially when you're working with people at committee, and if you watch us at committee, maybe not when the minister's there, but it's pretty collegial, it's pretty cordial. There's a time and a place for everything, is what I would say to every politician. There is a time to get angry, right? Like, you shouldn't be satisfied. I'm not happy that an election was called while Kabul was falling and people in Afghanistan man died. Like, I am angry about that, and frankly, I should be angry about that. We should all be angry about that.
So there's anger is okay on a local level.
Well, the anger
at the right time and place.
But it's also how you deal with it, right? You could be angry deep down, but the way you communicate that, you always are going to communicate it in a respectful way, and you're gonna deal with your colleagues in a respectful way. So that doesn't just go for city council, that goes for everybody. And there's a time and a place to be sad, there's a time and a place to be happy, there's a time and a place to work together, there's a time and a place when, as opposition, you have to oppose. When there's bad legislation, you oppose it. And that's one thing I'm so critical about the NDP with, is that you're an opposition party. Your job is to oppose, right? Your job is to oppose bad legislation. Your job is to stand up for Canadians. So I would say there's a time and a place for everything. My view, and if you watch me generally in committee, you don't see this, right?
I've seen some videos of you.
You've seen some
you're
videos.
sitting back, you're all casual, you're dressed like this.
Well, it
you're
looks like
asking
I'm
these
sitting.
questions.
It looks like I'm sitting back because of the angle. Because I look at it and it
Yeah,
looks like
it looks
I'm
like you're laying
this.
back
and
at
I'm
your-
not. Like,
at
I'm
a
usually
therapist's
like
office
this.
or something,
Actually,
yeah.
somebody had a pretty controversial video, and it was my name tag was here, but he was here, and the camera was here. So I was getting all this nasty mail, like Frank Caputo was, doing this and this. And anyways, yeah, no, I'm not that casual. But what you don't see is at the beginning of almost every committee meeting, I go and I shake everybody's hand, regardless of their party. Okay, when I was a lawyer in court, at the end of trial, most days, I would shake the opposing counsel's hand.
Good Canadian kid. Into the hockey game, right?
Yeah.
So
It's-
Reed Hammer Jackson should go and shake
Well, I'm not
everybody's
doing.
hand.
Hey, I'm not giving anybody advice. I'm not giving anybody advice.
Today, April 3rd, the mayor said he met, him and Deputy Mayor Middleton met with the Minister Sajjan just to say, what can you do for Kamloops? And they had a little talk about housing and stuff. Have you met with any council, including the mayor, about any issues that they wanted to bend your ear about nationally?
Well, a lot of the time you do. You meet with people informally.
Have you met with City Council on anything?
well, I was at
I
City
know you
Council
went
there.
there to
Yeah.
do the introduction, but have you had any meetings?
I'm trying to think here, not with the whole council, certainly. Sometimes, you just grab a cup of coffee or something like that. A lot of the time, it's when you come to Ottawa. I know Councillor Singh last time he came and he had coffee with a bunch of MPs. Councillor O'Reilly has come. We had dinner when he was in Ottawa. Sometimes we'll just grab a cup of coffee. I spoke with Councillor Sarai, for instance, just before that meeting and said, "Look, I've got something here. Can I bend your ear on this?" That's the way business is generally done.
Before we let Frank go, do you have a question for Mr. Caputo?
Yeah. Do you think that your tomatoes grow better on the North Shore than the South Shore?
Oh boy! Well, if you don't know this, but the elevation is slightly different, believe it or not. Even in Upper Sahali, you're really going to notice it. I'm talking about 2 weeks difference.
Yep.
Which doesn't sound like much, but when people are enjoying their tomatoes, but even in Lower Sahali, like above the hospital there, on McGill, right up to 7-Eleven there, you're still looking at probably a week's difference of planting. I think with quality care, your tomatoes are going to be good anywhere. Kamloops-Thompson-Cariboo loves our vegetables.
Very political answer there.
What part of Italy are you from?
My parents very far south, called Calabria. In fact, Speaker Anthony Rota, his.
That's where we're from. We're related.
We are. You know what?
It's all good.
The Speaker Anthony Rota, he's a Liberal member, but as Speaker, he's independent. He called me because we vote as MPs on Speaker, and so people will call, and it's an independent vote, right? It's a secret ballot, so nobody knows, and so people will call you and say, "Hey, I'd love your support," and so he calls me, and says, "You're Italian, Rota. We have Rotas here, right? In Kamloops.
Blair Rota.
Yeah, exactly. Randy Rota.
Randy Rota,
lived here." And so I said, "Oh yeah, so you're Italian clearly." And he speaks if you ever hear him speak, he speaks poetic, beautiful Italian. Like even if you can't understand it, it just sounds beautiful. And I said, "Well, where are you from?" And he said, "My mom's from here." And he said, "My grandfather was from a little town called Pietrafita." I said, "That's my mom's hometown."
Wow.
So our grandfathers probably knew each other because it's a town of 1,700. So can you imagine, 80 years later, you come from Barrier, someone else comes from Barrier, you meet in Italy, like the chances are they probably knew. So
the moral of the story is you voted for him.
Yeah, okay, it's a secret ballot. I'm not getting it. I know you want me to reveal these things, but
Okay.
thank
we're
you
gonna
so
leave it there.
much. It's been
Thanks
an
for being
honor
on
and
the
a
show.
pleasure. I love this. This is great. Thank
Let's
you.
wrap the show next. The show today brought to you by...
How can I help you?
Oh, just wondering, what's the best thing about McDonald's?
That's a difficult question. I'm not sure.
Not sure.
What are you looking to have?
Yep. For me, it's the fact that I can order a Big Measy a quarter peasy and a filet o fizi, and do that all while shopping local. But I'd like to order just 2 coffee, please. 2 large coffee, both with 2 cream.
2 large coffees, both with 2 cream?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Here's this.
Yep. Okay. Whew. Do we have another clip we're playing, or is that it? We're gonna wrap it.
Oh, we're just gonna wrap the show here. If Folds is ever off of his phone.
Let's do it.
Okay. Thoughts on Frank?
Frank Caputo, very energetic, Very passionate guy. You can tell he loves what he does, Like,
Fan of the show too, he said.
Fan of the show.
Watches.
He falls asleep. Probably falls asleep while the show. Who wouldn't? But he's a fan of the show. He's 18 months in, right? So it's good to see that sort of energy. I wonder if he's a 2 or 3 term MP, whether he'll have the same vigor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kamloops this week, the Maury Awards. They're the BC and Yukon Community Newspaper Awards.
Up for 3, not 4, because the 4th was the general excellence, but they sent out a erroneous list. So we're not up for Paper of the Year.
What?
No, but we are up for Michael Potestio for Business Writing of the Year. Dave Eagles and Karina Latris, who is a psychiatric nurse who was finishing a paper for her master's from Grant MacEwan College in Edmonton, the Griffins, my alma mater. They went out last year, and we talked to Reed about this. We did a pretty good series on profiles of some of the people in the homeless community. We published 11 of them, spoke to like 30 something. That's up for a feature series of the year for BC and Yukon. And then Jessica Wallace, again, is up for Investigative Journalism Award. It's for a follow-up story on the TNRD scandal. The follow-up was about the chair and the demands that he resigned because he withheld a crucial letter from the board. Anyway, there's 3. But the downside this year, there's no gala.
Yeah.
We usually go to the River Rock Casino Resort in Richmond and have a great time, a big gala. It's like a really nice time. But financial concerns by the news media industry, they're going to forego that this year.
Yeah, they normally have like an after party upstairs,
and
it's
great.
Free beer and stuff. It's a good time.
Pool
one
table.
Of the only times of the year where print journalists get to go and
it's a good
get treated like.
And you meet your peers and you talk about stories and you kind of leave those things kind of jacked up and amped to do some more work. It's a good thing. It's a good sort of team building thing too. Mike,
the Magic Mirror, brought to you by Volkswagen. Do you have any thoughts on anything going on in your life, or just want to give yourself an itch?
In life, no major thoughts. Everything's really good for me. Little hiccup this morning, but I don't think that's indicative of the world ending.
I think it is.
It might be, but I'm a little more positive about that. But on a good note, Frank Caputo invited me to join the Colombo Lodge. So
there you go.
You're
Italian.
Who you know?
Is Michael Potestio getting invited?
No, he can't.
I don't know.
Probably not.
I hope not. He's that North Shore Italian.
We are looking for a co-title sponsor to join the Last Week Clique Sponsorship Consortium, which includes Gord's Appliance and Mattress Center, Volkswagen at Kamloops, and the Y Dream Home Lottery. There's room for one more co-title sponsor. We're up to 383 subscribers on YouTube. We keep growing. We're into the hundreds of thousands of views now across all platforms. We always love to support our sponsors on social media. So contact me, KLW at KamloopsThisWeek.com, and we can talk business. Episode 100 just around the corner.
That's right. We're going to have the pickleball challenge. Is that what we're going to try to do?
Pickleball challenge. I haven't heard much from Tara Holmes lately, from Franca, from Terry Lowe. Some cowardice there, maybe.
Probably.
Some
They're
fear.
probably scared. Yeah, they're scared.
Hopefully we'll hear from them. Until then, for Chris, for Magic Mike, for Bill, I'm Marty, and we'll see you last week.
Last.